I stand before you today, the representative of a family in grief, in a country in mourning, before a world in shock.
Diana's death really did bring the royal family to its knees.
Diana was the very essence of compassion, of duty, of style, of beauty.
Diana seems to have defied her critics, people who wanted her to shut up and go away.
We will all feel cheated, always, that you were taken from us so young.
Diana was a pioneer. She was ahead of her time.
She haunted the royal family, and she still haunts the royal family to this day. Diana's never far away.
I had so many dreams as a young girl that I wanted this, that, and that. Not want, hopes.
This is CNN Breaking News.
I'm Jean Meserve in Washington. In Paris, France tonight, a tragedy. Britain's Princess Diana has been in an automobile accident. She has been injured. Her companion, Dodi Al-Fayed, with whom she has been romantically linked over the past month or so, reportedly was killed.
I saw there was a message on the phone answer machine, and it was from a Fleet Street editor saying, had I seen the news about Princess Diana, and did I want to say anything?
We have reports from Paris that Diana, Princess of Wales, has been killed in a car accident.
The accident happened as their car was being chased by photographers through a road tunnel near the Eiffel Tower. The princess died in hospital a few hours later.
Our royal correspondent, Nicholas Owen, is with me now. Nicholas, one's heart goes out especially to the young princes, William and Harry.
William and Harry, indeed. I don't know whether the princes themselves would have been told yet, but certainly the Prince of Wales has been informed, and I'm sure the Queen will have been told about it as well.
The news came through to Balmoral directly from Paris, from our ambassador out there, Sir Michael Jay. I think Charles was in absolute shock that this had happened. He felt immediately for his sons, obviously, and there was personal grief as well. This was a woman he had loved, but there was also this feeling, oh my God, I am going to get blamed for this.
The marriage was over, but he still felt a huge obligation towards her, mainly in the shape of his sons, who were sleeping just a few yards away.
The Queen and Prince Charles got up and talked together, discussed whether they should tell the boys, and I think quite rightly, Charles decided that what's the point of waking up the boys right now? We don't know the truth of it. We'll wait till the morning. He chose, I believe, to talk to William first, his eldest, which is understandable. And together they then went and told Prince Harry, who was just 12. I think Charles's decisions that night came from the heart, actually. He felt absolutely that his ex-wife was still the mother of the future king, and was still the woman he had once loved, and was still royal in some measure, and should be treated accordingly.
There is no doubt that in those last few months of Diana's life, the relationship between Prince and Princess had improved, and improved quite considerably. He would pop in and say hello, and Diana was thrilled about this. I remember her ringing me. She said, "You'll never guess who's just come to see me." I said, "No, my ex-husband."
Charles and Diana were on better terms in the months after the divorce. She even, from time to time, came to him for advice.
After all the trouble and strife that they'd been through, it was all that much more remarkable, really.
And I can remember the first conversation I had with Tony Blair, and he said, "This is going to be like nothing we've ever seen."
Dawn had not yet broken over Buckingham Palace as people began to arrive to pay their respects, young people grieving for a princess they regarded as their own.
She was young herself, she was fresh, she was, I think she showed that the royal family wasn't something that was still stuck in the 18th century.
I remember seeing crowds that were mourning just be very different. There were Asian people, there were Black people, there were old people, there were younger people. It did not feel like what we had been used to. It was very powerful in that it showed you the kind of people who had built this coalition of love and support around Diana.
The news about Diana's death traveled all over the world. It reached every corner of the globe.
For a country born in rebellion against British royalty, it was a remarkable outpouring of grief in Washington for a fallen Princess of Wales.
We have experienced shocking deaths before, JFK a perfect example, but nothing like this and on this scale.
It would have been a big challenge for Tony Blair because he was a very new prime minister at this point. There wasn't really a sort of rule book about how to deal with anything like this.
The people everywhere, not just here in Britain, everywhere, they kept faith with Princess Diana. They liked her, they loved her. They regarded her as one of the people. She was the people's princess. And that's how she will stay, how she will remain in our hearts and in our memories forever.
The phrase the people's princess would absolutely cause a division between the public and the royal family. So you have to ask, well, then what's the royal family? Are they not the people's prince or the people's queen?
I remember reporting that morning on the fact that the boys were seen going to church. I thought, how strange. But this is a family that does things by routine.
The service in the local church lasted an hour, but not once was the princess mentioned by name. As Prince Charles and his sons left with the rest of the family, Princess Diana's brother was giving his very public and very angry reaction to her death.
Good morning. I'm just going to read this statement. It would appear that every proprietor and editor of every publication that has paid for intrusive and exploitative photographs of her, encouraging greedy and ruthless individuals to risk everything in pursuit of Diana's image, has blood on his hands today.
Diana and her brother Charles were very close as children. Their relationship went through highs and lows, but essentially, I think there was a huge love between the two of them.
There had been difficult times between them, but it's the birthday party at the Tate was her 36th, and it was a charity event. And she did say to one of her friends, the only person I want to see in that whole room is my brother, Charles. And it was, in fact, the last time they saw each other.
Flanked by an honor guard of French soldiers, the body of Diana, Princess of Wales, leaves a hospital in Paris.
Prince Charles went to the hospital in Paris, and when he saw her body, he noticed that she was missing one of her gold earrings, and he said she can't go without her earring. He can't fully confront his grief, so he becomes fixated on one small object. Those who saw Charles come out of the room said that he was like a different man. He was completely grief-stricken.
Crowds are gathered outside the princess's London home, Kensington Palace, and outside Buckingham Palace.
All these people had come instinctively. They had gravitated to Buckingham Palace as the focal point of their grief. And there wasn't a candle in a window. There wasn't a piper playing a lament. There was nothing to acknowledge the sense of loss that people were feeling. And I can remember thinking, that's not a good sign.
The public needed and wanted somebody within those palace walls to come out and mourn with them, because there's no support for Diana. There's no mourning or grieving? Where is it?
Even though Tony Blair had said, this is going to see an outpouring of grief like we've never seen before, I think everybody was surprised by the volume of people and the volume of flowers.
People were wailing with grief. In a way, it was sort of quite frightening.
The public felt that they were doing the right thing, many of them wanting to make a sort of physical pilgrimage to go to Buckingham Palace. Yet they saw the Queen up in Scotland and she hadn't even come down to London.
I think the Queen was absolutely bewildered by what transpired that week. She couldn't understand that her people were demanding that she share her private emotions. It's not something she does.
It became very controversial and unpopular with a lot of people that they stayed in Balmoral, but this is a family that's trying to come to terms with the loss of the mother of these two boys.
Princess Diana doted on her sons. She was incredibly close to William and Harry. For them, the loss of her must have been unimaginable.
We had seen Diana as, in one sense, the mother who hugged, who loved, who smiled at her boys.
My own children, I'm just demented about them, and it's mutual. It's terrific understanding.
Diana has changed the boys from what royals really have been before.
When you saw other royals with their children, it was always very guarded and very formal. But to see her, you know, scoop them up and hug them and kiss them and do whatever, it was lovely.
I hug my children. It's always that. I always feed them. It's so important.
Princess Diana wanted to show her sons Harry and William what the real world was like. She would take them to homeless shelters and take them to meet people who were sleeping rough on the streets.
Princess Diana cared deeply about Centre Point. Her visits to the homeless youngsters were often in public, but she also took Princes William and Harry as children on private, often late-night visits. Following in his mother's footsteps, Prince William became patron of Centre Point, his first patronage.
Prince William has spent a night sleeping rough on the streets of London as part of his work supporting Centre Point, a charity for the homeless.
That was a very powerful image, which catapulted the issue of homelessness onto the front pages, where it had not been since the days of Diana.
Diana put her causes that she was so passionate about into action. In the days after her death, the public is doing exactly what Diana did. They're putting this cause of Diana's death into action.
It became a change from deference to the royal family to a kind of the individual is increasingly more important. People weren't supposed to put flowers in front of Buckingham Palace, and they weren't supposed to kind of come together like that.
The question a lot of people here in Britain are asking this morning is, where's the Queen?
The nation, every colour, race, religion have pulled together for this, and they're not even here. They're hiding away in Scotland.
They're the most cold people on this earth.
How can you not show that you care in this moment? Protocol be damned.
Many feel the palace is not doing enough. They want something more tangible.
These headlines were the measure of the mood, part of the anger. The flag isn't half-staff at Buckingham Palace.
The Queen wasn't in residence, so the flag wasn't flying. That would be traditional royal protocol. But the flag became a trigger point for people's anger, and the press, who were very keen to take the blame away from themselves, actually stirred up more of this anti-flag sentiment.
Our Queen should be here in London with her people. This is her nation, and they should know how all her people feel about Diana.
You had this criticism, where is our Queen?
The palace was kind of under attack.
The monarchy in Britain was on a knife edge at that point.
They really felt that when and if the Queen appeared in London, she would be cursed. Things might be thrown at her. And it's the closest I've ever come to a feeling that the monarchy might be overthrown in some way.
On the eve of Princess Diana's funeral, the royal family is returning to London, hoping perhaps to quell some of the criticism of their actions since Diana's death. Tonight, the Queen will address the nation in a rare nationally televised speech.
I think that it had become untenable for them not to react because the pressure was coming from every side.
The exodus from Balmoral began shortly before 11 o'clock this morning.
When they decided to move, they moved.
When the royals came home.
Earl Spencer captured the spirit of Diana, talking about what made her unique. But he was angry.
There is no doubt that she was looking for a new direction in her life at this time. She talked endlessly of getting away from England, mainly because of the treatment that she received at the hands of the newspapers. It is a point to remember that of all the ironies about Diana, perhaps the greatest was this. A girl given the name of the ancient goddess of hunting was, in the end, the most hunted person of the modern age. And beyond that, on behalf of your mother and sisters,
setting the two families apart and against one another in that way was extraordinary to hear.
I remember at the time just thinking like, ooh, like so spicy. It felt very righteous and fiery in appropriate measure. But I think that it very much like registered as a family that was upset about how their sister had been treated. And I think for the public was really a stand-in for them. It was like, here is someone who is giving a tiny ounce of what we believe should be said. It certainly felt like it was a lightning rod moment.
He read his eulogy to her. He sat beside the coffin, he read it to her. And he said, you know, it sounds balmy probably, but I felt that she approved of my words.
above all, we give thanks for the life of a woman I'm so proud to be able to call my sister. The unique, the complex, the extraordinary and irreplaceable Diana, whose beauty, both internal and external, will never be extinguished from our minds.
You heard a sound like rain outside.
At first, nobody knew what this noise was.
It was quite unnerving. It sounded like hail on a tin roof.
We all looked up, and it was still, the sun was shining. You know, it was a beautiful day.
And then it was inside the abbey and swept up to the altar.
The royal family must have thought, this is treason. This is so telling. This is what people really think about us. We're going to have to do things differently.
Even William and Harry, I believe, joined in with that applause. The Queen certainly did not. I imagine at that stage she was sitting in quite a state of shock.
One by one, the unwritten rules surrounding the royal family are falling away. Royal protocol is out of the window. And the Diana effect only grows stronger from here.
It all began in the shadow of the palace, and so it was to end. Diana's hearse, framed by silent mourners, passed by just after noon, and the country ached with sadness.
People say to me, thank you for bringing happiness into my life. I mean, little sentences that put together make a very special day. Thank you for coming, thank you for making the effort, thank you for being here, all those things I never used to believe.
She was remarkably insecure. She had no real concept of her popularity, of her power of persuasion. She thought she just went out and smiled and said interesting things and people were grateful and they took their photographs and went away. But it was much more than that. I mean, people went away from their encounters with Diana and they never forgot about them.
Can I have a cuddle? Yes. She's stunning.
It's easy to say I think she would have gone on to be an even greater figure, but I do. The legacy that she leaves are her sons. She deroyaled them in a way. They've been taken out of the box of monarchy and they've been made modern. And we'll see the benefit of Diana's legacy when William comes to the throne, when a new order takes shape. The future of the British monarchy is still in Diana's hands.
Diana was the people's princess, and Will chose one of those people to be his bride.
William and Kate, they have to be the rock that keeps the House of Windsor trundling down the historical highway. But they also know the world will be a very different place for their children and for them by the time they come to the throne.
Will and Kate are definitely modernizing the face of the royal family, and I think a big part of that is how accessible they are, how relatable they are.
I think in William, we have someone who Diana told me felt the burden of kingship weigh very, very heavily on his shoulders, but who is really stepping up to the mark, who has all of her empathy with people and a modern way of doing things as she had, and has the makings of a great king.
Thank you very much. I'd love to. It's the first time here, not the last, I assure you.
William and Kate are more emblematic than anybody of the way the royal family has adjusted and incorporated the best of Diana.
Harry, of course, is on a different path to his brother, but a path that I'm certain that his mother would be proud of.
In choosing his wife, Harry went against royal expectation in various ways. He went for a woman who is American, an actress, a career woman, biracial, a feminist, very politically engaged.
Race has played a part ever since Meghan and Harry got together. Meghan Markle was not the woman who the establishment thought Prince Harry would end up with. Nobody expected that. The tabloid press did not expect that, and large sections of the public did not expect that. And when that happened, there was a backlash. But one of the things that you'd see with Meghan Markle that I think you saw with Diana is a real determination of spirit.
Princess Diana was a blueprint for Harry and Meghan. She was the model of, you can escape if you want, but you have to fight for it. And you might lose a few things in the process. Diana's life was cut short just as she found her freedom. But Harry and Meghan can forge their own path.
I think Harry and Meghan represent a new possibility for the royal family and a new way of life. They've moved to California, they're living on their own, they're doing these deals, they're certainly very active in the charitable space. They're able to live life on their own terms. And I do think Diana would have loved that for Harry.
In the way that Princess Diana brought up her sons, she really shaped the men they would become. And in doing so, she changed the direction of the royal family.
Diana's legacy is rippling through history in an extraordinary way, and I think a way we've never seen before.
It's a story that if we are intelligent and perceptive, we can see still has a continuing relevance, not just for the modern royal family, but for many other aspects of society, for people in the public eye, what we should expect of them and what we shouldn't.
Usually famous figures fade away into the pages of history. Not Diana. The tragedy is that we'll never know what Diana could have become.
Diana had this fairy tale that young girls are brought up on of you marry the prince and you live happily ever after. And in a time when there was a lot of change for women in general, she broke away from this fairy tale and said, I'd kind of rather do it on my own.
But even in fairy tales, being a princess is like living in a gilded cage. And anyone who does actually become a princess in real life, you realize that that is just an illusion.
But she crafted a new image of a modern princess, of somebody who is independent and accomplished and has a voice and an identity. And I think, especially for little girls today, what a role model to have.
Do you like this idea? Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really cheerful as well.
Princess Diana's life was a blueprint for the modern woman.
Diana will be relevant for eternity.
She could present herself in such a way that she could outshine anybody, outglitz anyone, and sort of dominate a gathering. And then it would be all over and she'd come up to me, or I might see her later and say, how did I do, you know? I said, God, you were fantastic.
We can all just continue to create stories about what could have been. And that's the sadness around the short life of Diana. What could have been from this extraordinary woman that, frankly, we hardly know.